Attention all Junior Mints Movie Club members and aspiring snack pack aficionados. Gather around the Ouija board and listen close, because this episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is sponsored by HelloFresh. Their fast and fresh recipes are ready in just 15 minutes or less, and HelloFresh is 25% cheaper than takeout. Don't miss out on the trailers because you got caught up in the line for concessions. Go to HelloFresh.com/brothers50 and use code brothers50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Come on, mama. Everyone loves a schnack who comes prepared with their own snacks, right? Get delicious dinners and scary good snacks delivered right to your door with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet Brothers, Creatures of the Night.
Hello, uglies, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. We are your hosts, of course, your queens of darkness, Dracmorta and Swanthula Boulet. Swanthula, how are you doing tonight?
Excellent. Hello, darlings. I'm so happy to be right back here with you to terrorize the airwaves.
Yes. And let's just get into it. We got to catch up on a lot of things today. We're going to start with some not so great news, which is we had to pull out of our Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans UK tour dates. There was only a few, but we had to pull out of them. So I wanted to tell people at home what was going on with that and why we had to do it. We are in production on a special project right now, and it's gotten extended. Our filming dates have gotten extended, and we cannot go to the UK anymore. And I'm so sad because I love going to the UK.
It's such a huge disappointment. I'm sure it's a huge disappointment for fans. It's also a disappointment for us because I absolutely love to be in the UK. I love the cities. I love the fans. I love the energy. They love drag. It always feels so good to be there.
Yeah, because we don't get to check in with the fans there as often, and I always look forward to it. I will say, to make it up to the fans, and I do apologize for any of you that were inconvenienced by us having to pull out, but we really had no choice. It was outside of our control. I hope you understand. But we might have a big surprise for you in the winter to make it up to you. Stay tuned, and hopefully we will fill you in soon. There is still something happening, though, in the place of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans tour. You want to tell them about it?
Yes, absolutely. So from the ashes of the Dragula tour comes a new event called the Monsters of Drag, featuring Victoria Elizabeth Black, your reigning queen of the underworld. Coco Kane is going to be there, and Bitch Pudding has been added to the lineup. Dali has been added to the lineup, and there's going to be special guests in the form of Joe Black, Crystal, and Licorice Black.
I am so sad that we're not going to be there. I handpicked those performers to join us, and we had this whole thing planned that we were going to reveal that they were going to be performing with us for the Titans tour, because we had something special planned that we might still do in January. But anyways, I really wanted to meet Joe Black too. Yeah, I was really excited to meet them. I've heard such great things about them. But anyways, still go to the show. It's going to be great. Bitch is an incredible performer. Dolly's great. Bitch is emceeing it. She's going to do great. I mean, everyone should go. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then it'll hold you over for when we can be there next.
Yeah, and just celebrate for us 10 times harder than you normally would, because I want to be there in spirit.
I know. So yeah, like I mentioned, we're still in production on this project. And, you know, I was looking at Instagram when we were on set, and I just kept seeing these flyers, right? It looked like the same flyer, right?
Okay.
It's like these kind of drag things. It's like bottomless mimosas and like saucy Sundays and like brunchettes and like lipstick divas, and you know, it's like
we all know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking
totally.
about.
We know that party. We know that girl.
It's like, yeah, there's this thing, and it's in like every town. You know, it's like the working girl parties.
Yes.
You know? And it was weird because I'm sitting there on set and I'm covered in all this blood and gore. And then I'm looking at these flyers and I'm like, how is this the same
How do
thing?
we exist in the same universe?
It's weird to me how crazy drag has become, how different it is, you know? And I think it's always been that way, but drag is such big business now that there's even more variety than before. You know, it's such across the board. Like I think about what we do, and you know, we're horror hosts and we do these TV shows and we're writers and directors and all this. And then you have these sort of like brunchette, like working girls like out there making their rent. But then you have people like drag artists in Brooklyn that don't even perform. They just paint and they're like silent.
Sasha is so theatrical, and Christine, who's so avant-garde and trashy.
Yeah, it's so different.
It's a huge wide world.
It's really interesting to just look at the dichotomy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get those nights where it's like Abora, the star of Lipstick Divas.
Abora, sometimes I know when I think of Lipstick Diva.
Oh my God!
I think of Abora's beak. I mean, does Abora even have lipstick? It's
I think it just depends what the look is that night.
Yeah, I think so too. Anyways,
does she have lipstick? Does she have lips? I don't know. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I really respect those like working queens that are like, I'm there Tuesday, I'm there Wednesday, I'm there Thursday, I get my rent, I'm collecting tips. Cause I'm like, look, I looked at that flyer and I was like, you are in Palm Springs. It is like 110. It is Sunday afternoon. It is bright as hell. And you are out there in those pads and those hose and those rhinestones doing flips and grabbing those tips out of people's hands. And I'm like, damn.
She works hard
I
for the
respect the hell out of that.
They're hustlers.
But it made me think as I'm sitting there with all my sticky blood and can't even open my eyes because when the blood dries on your eyelids and you can't open them, it's like that kind of thing. I was thinking to myself, if all of a sudden tomorrow the world flip-flopped and you had to go out and earn your rent from bottomless mimosas or whatever, could you do it?
Okay. It's a twofold answer. Could I do it? Technically, yes. And I would go in there and I would like rip the roof right off of the place. But would I do it? I don't know. Because I think everything has a time and a place.
Yeah.
And those places, they really birth like amazing artists who probably have incredible careers that can go for years and years.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the beginning. And you know what? I could not go back in time. If that was presented to me today, I'd be like, girl, I'm hanging up my heels and burning my waist. The answer is hell no.
It's the heat. It's like the daytime. I'm like,
It's
I
rough.
can't. But, it's interesting because we started off in clubs as well. Like our drag was born in clubs, but it wasn't like that. Like we were always like the grand dames of the night and we were the MCs and we performed, but it was like kind of more like fetishy and dark and it wasn't
creatures of fantasy and environment, not so much
it was a
like
different kind of
the
club.
super hustle. Because I don't even think like that hardcore like 5, 6, 7, 8 shablam and like the pads and everything. That's like really a modern trend.
Maybe so. Yeah. I think back in the day drag was more pageant-y or it was just punk and fun and it wasn't about like I'm making my rent, I'm booked the 13th, the 14th, it wasn't that. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting. If I did it, it would have to be a completely different character. Like I would have to just create a brand new character. And would I do it? No, I wouldn't. I might do it for like a week because my character would just be wild and trashy and like shows that we used to do back in the day.
So fun. Look, it's clear the drag world is vast. And there are a million different ways that you can express the drags. But one way we will be expressing our drag.
Not the plug.
Is
here comes the plug.
On August 25th through 27th, we will be presiding over Days of the Dead, a huge horror convention here in Los Angeles.
And we won't be accepting tips.
I love this event because we did the one in Atlanta. This is our first time in LA. And the subline for this event is All Monsters Attack.
I love that.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
And Art the Clown's going to be there.
There's tons of people that will be.
Leon.
Yeah, that's right. Alyssa Sutherland from Evil Dead Rise. Actually, Terrifier is going to have a huge presence because, yes, we'll be there. Damien Leone. And also Amelie McLean, who plays Art's like sidekick, that twisted little girl.
Oh,
like,
really?
All three of them will be there. So
that's amazing.
But the highlight for me, special for me, Jennifer Rubin will be there, who plays Taryn from Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, my absolute childhood favorite. Oh, I'm so excited.
I wonder if she's going to charge you for a picture.
I mean, probably yes. I'll come prepared. I learned my lesson a long time ago.
Oh, no, all cash. Here you go, Kathleen Turner. Here's $50.
But we will be on hand with exclusive merch, and we'll be there to meet the fans. And I think we might even be doing a very special live recording of an episode of Creatures of the Night.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be on Saturday, the 26th. So be sure to check it out. Days of the Dead in Los Angeles.
Well, look, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and be joined by our own lipstick diva, Mrs. Ian. See you soon.
Attention all Junior Mints Movie Club members and aspiring snack pack aficionados. Gather around the Ouija board and listen close because this episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you're a fan of this podcast, then you probably know that I am a notorious snacker. That's why I have fallen even more in love with HelloFresh, because with HelloFresh Market, it's now easier than ever to skip that extra grocery store run by adding a selection of over 100 snacks, sides, and more to your weekly order. Whether I'm watching a movie in theaters and need to fill my official Junior Mint snack pack with delicious healthy snacks, or I need to make dinner fast so I don't miss a single episode of the Boulet Brothers Dragula, HelloFresh has me covered. Their fast and fresh recipes are ready in just 15 minutes or less, and HelloFresh is 25% cheaper than takeout. Don't miss out on the trailers because you got caught up in the line for concessions. Go to HelloFresh.com/brothers50 and use code brothers50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Come on, mama. Everyone loves a schnack who comes prepared with their own snacks, right? Get delicious dinners and scary good snacks delivered right to your door with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Welcome back, Uglies. It's time we bring in our cohort and co-host, Ian DeVogler.
Oh my God, sorry I'm late. The plane was delayed after my show at Lipstick Divas, and then I was in Chicago for my bottomless mimocha brunch, and then it was a whole thing. Oh my God, but I'm here. Wonky lash applied.
Well, thank you for joining us. A working girl is a busy girl.
Oh, yes, she is, Mama Diva.
Do you understand what I was talking about? I mean, look, we used to do million clubs and all that, but it was like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a different kind of drag artist that can do that kind of, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's 100 different characters on the roster. I look at it as like, it's like Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah.
Like, I see the Lipstick Divas, and then I see the weird crossovers with like Abora and like Vander's there sometimes. Like, I don't know. I think it's cool, but I definitely do think it's funny. Like, when I think about, because, okay, actually, I recently saw footage from Austin, Texas Pride. And, you know, two of the headliners, it's Louisiana Purchase, who has been Austin's #1 drag queen since
For
like
18,000 years.
dawn of time. And then also Coco. And I think it's so cool. Like, I'm looking at the footage and I'm like, oh my God, Coco looks amazing. And then I'm like seeing outside of myself and my cell phone for a second. And I'm like, if I was a lipstick diva and I was like, Mama, I'm ready to turn. I got my Kim Petras Alone remix featuring Nicki Minaj. I'm ready to perform, honey. And then I look over and Coco is doing just Coco on 10. I'd be like, girl, what in the literal hell is happening?
How about
in this
when
Texas
we were at
stage?
Austin Pride and we're like lighting these braziers of smoke on fire in this dramatic satanic procession.
I love
And then there's
it.
like Shangela like, clock the nails. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I mean, that, if you're in the crowd, you must be like, what?
But it made me think though. It's like, because for me, when I look at the lineup, I'm like, yes, I want to see Coco there. I want to see Louisiana, but I also want to see a lipstick diva like turning it, like turn and burn, swirl and twirl, mama. I want it all.
Oh my God, absolutely. Like, I love those girls that can do, there's a language of dance that they all know it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know who speaks it the most? Like, who is the #1?
Speak it.
It is Kennedy Davenport. I mean, she is
She probably invented half
fucking
of those
believable.
things. I'll
Like,
say
I
this about
watch it and I'm like,
Kennedy.
I mean, like, part of me actually wants to try to do it. But when I see it, I'm just like, this is so incredible. But there's like a certain set number of like moves, and the
Absolutely.
bitches
hell
know
yeah.
the moves. They know them all.
Kennedy-
That little like, and like the head flip, and then the leg kick, and it's
Well,
Yeah.
of all people, I feel like Kennedy is like the inventor of half of those moves because Kennedy knows how to fucking move. And
Oh, yeah.
remember, we used to book her all the time
yeah.
at Queen Kong and different parties, and she always knocks it out of the park.
See, you know what? And that's something that I think is really interesting. It's like Queen Kong was that kind of space
Yeah.
where it was like you would see the lipstick diva, you would see the working girl, you would see the San Francisco art queen, and you would see the precursor of like the Dragula monster all in one stage, and it just made sense.
But because
Yeah,
the
but that's-
packaging made sense. The
Exactly.
packaging that we made up for it was intended to be that. It wasn't that I was like, Malibu Sundays, here's a Bora. You're like, what?
yeah.
What's
it
happening?
was literally a queer kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was presented as such.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry. I have to go to Malibu Sundays featuring a
It's
Bora.
probably at beaches in WeHo on I don't know Sunday. I'm sure it's happening.
This episode of Creatures of the Night is sponsored by Malibu Sundays and bottomless mimosas.
What is that line now? Malibu Barbie.
That's not who I was.
Oh, there's like 1,000 Barbie nights too now.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
1,000 Barbie. And I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do they cry, I wonder? Or is it like...
Oh, that's what I do, Matt. That's when I do Barbie night. I just come in, I do the Billie Eilish number every single time. Oh, it's a good time, divas.
God. All right, let's move on. Do you have any news today?
I do. As always, it is my pleasure to bring you the freshest and most fragrant news items from the bloodiest butchers in all of Hollywood. So before the body cools and the blood runs cold, let's dig in. First up, following our latest Junior Mints Movie Club review of A24's latest box office hit, Talk to Me, the Australian horror film has been making the news rounds with several stories buzzing since its release. Capitalizing on the success of the film, A24 has ordered an official sequel to the film with a teaser image release of the iconic disembodied hand broken and bent into the shape of the number 2 alongside the news. Speaking of the hand, A24 has also announced that intrepid spectral adventurers will be able to purchase the screen-accurate replica of the ritual hand just in time for the Halloween season.
Very wise. They're getting into the merch game.
I love it because I saw everyone was like, "Oh my god, I want one, I want one," and then I feel like some intern was like, "Hey guys,
got a really great idea.
Oh, hey guys, we got to release this hand. Come on."
I saw that movie post with the teaser for Talk to Me 2 and the disembodied hand in the shape
Talk
of a 2.
to
Talk
me.
to me. Yeah, I'm like,
A24...
you know, I love a fucking move like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I love a little like twist like that.
Well, A24 always has good merch. They
Yeah,
always
they
have
do.
good merch. They always have like these really nice like
The candles and the books, yeah.
everything. So it's probably going to be a good quality item.
I hope so. Moving things from the silver screen to smaller screens in all of our homes, cult classic horror film 13 Ghosts, the 2001 Dark Castle remake starring Matthew Lillard, is getting the reboot treatment again in the form of a brand new series in the works that seeks to expand the lore of the 13 ghosts that inhabit the gear-shifting house in the phantasmal Fright Fest. The 2001 film is a reboot of the original 1960 film, originally directed by William Castle, and this new vision will take the series and technology even further into the spirit realm, with plans being discussed to utilize augmented reality tech so that audience members at home can interact with the series ghosts in the not-so-safety of their own homes long after the episodes finish streaming each week.
How is that going to work?
Have you ever used AR stuff on your phone? Like, okay, this is really weird. IKEA has like AR technology where you can like, you like look at your house or you look your interior through your camera, and then they'll like put a couch in it.
We have, Drac, when we went to the Museum of Torture in Hollywood
yeah.
with Twin Temple, you can download the AR app, and it's like, if it's haunted, the
yeah.
ghosts will appear.
Yes!
And bitch, I spent more time staring at my phone for the ectoplasmic manifestations than I did looking at the torture
See,
devices.
The
so
problem with that
cute.
is when I used it outside of the museum, it still worked, which means the
Yeah.
whole thing was fake as hell.
Oh,
It was
come
real,
on.
Drac. It was
It's-
real.
No, I mean, it
Ghosts
wasn't.
are real. Augmented reality is real.
It didn't even connect to the stuff there.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, that's kinda lame.
that's what I mean. It was like I went out and there was like, oh, the Countess Ghost is here. I was like, well, she wasn't. I was like, this is just pre-recorded.
I don't know. If it lets me like Pokemon Go style Matthew Lillard, then like that's all I want. I just want her like appearing in my bathroom.
Well, she's appeared live in front of you several times now.
I know.
You know, and Ian wants him to
want-
appear live behind him.
I want to
All
slice.
right, well, you had your chance
I never
and you
saw-
missed it.
Not that you know of.
Saw the
Yeah.
2001 version of 13 Ghosts. I have seen the original, and I feel like it's just like, what did you guys think of it?
I love the original
Did you
one.
love
yeah,
it?
and I think it makes sense to translate it into a TV series because then you could go into the story of each ghost.
Yeah, each episode is going to be about one of the ghosts.
Makes total sense.
Hopefully it's better than the original because I'm not a big fan.
You didn't like it?
I love William Castle because he's kind of like a genius PR stunt queen, and even 13 Ghosts almost felt like an exercise in technology. It was like, let's just see how much we can sort of bend viewers' expectations and like double exposures and whatever it was that they were doing in the 60s. And he did a lot of other stuff with movie-going experiences where people were getting like scared and they like skeletons being flown in on wires while horror movies are
so
playing
cool.
to sensationalize the experience. Like, you must go see this film, the scariest thing ever. And I love him for that. But 13 Ghosts, for some weird reason, didn't really hit for me. I do love the idea, though, of stories focusing on each of the ghosts and kind of deep diving. So that could be attractive.
Yeah, it's weird. When I think about 13 Ghosts, I haven't seen the 1960 original, but I did see the 2001 version fairly recently. And it's just not exactly my cup of tea. Like, I get why people love it. I mean, it's been referenced on the Boulet Brothers Dragula a couple of times. I think like Frankie Doom did a cosplay of one of those characters for one of her floor shows, but it's just not really my thing. However, I am excited. Like Drax said, like I like the idea of like every episode is sort of about a different ghost. Like that sort of like anthology-esque experience really speaks to me.
Of course, if you get a second season, you're in trouble because you'll have already went through all 13.
Like, oh my God, well, I guess it's 26 ghosts this time, deal.
And 13 new ghosts for 2025.
13 ghosts squared, and then it's like it never ends. And finally, adding a little extra Halloween flavor into the mix, as if we couldn't get enough spice in this haunted kitchen, nostalgia hounds amongst our listeners can rejoice as McDonald's is teaming up with fashion brand Loungefly for an exclusive collaboration to bring their Boo Buckets back in the form of reissued shoulder bags.
Ooh, I haven't heard about this yet.
Oh, yes, mama. If you've ever wanted a big, bitchy purse and you missed out on the re-release of the Boo Buckets from last year, they have the Green Witch and they also have the Orange Pumpkin as your maybe last and final chance to get the Boo Buckets.
Well, wait, what? I don't understand. They're turning it into a bag?
Well, here, I'll turn my computer screen right around, Mom.
Because I know everyone was obsessed with those buckets. Was it last year or the year before?
I think it was last year because that's when
Karen was like
exactly
gooped over these buckets and everybody's
and
hunting
she
them
made,
online.
maybe she was like anticipating what the market would call for because she made that handcrafted oversized version. Remember, she did
made
that
a
super
full
huge
body one like you were one.
Not you were one.
Yeah, like you became the it was like it was
Oh
cool.
my God. Speaking of, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but when I was a kid, I once was like, I want to go as SpongeBob for Halloween. But it wasn't like, I just want to like wear pants and a shirt. I made like a 4x6 cardboard box SpongeBob that I walked around and I couldn't see out of it at all. And I just walked around the neighborhood, got candy, and like fell over 100 times.
So you do know what it feels like to be in our drag. Can't see, running into everything, falling down,
collecting candy, the
just
whole thing.
walking there like big ass parade float, blind as hell.
All right, my darlings, it's time we move on to the Junior Mints Movie Club movie review. And we are discussing Andre Overdahl's The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula and focuses on the doomed journey of the ship, the Demeter, that carried the body of Dracula along with crates of earth from Carpathia to London. The crew eventually discovers Dracula's unholy presence on board and turns the voyage into a nightmarish fight for survival. We have Liam Cunningham starring as the ship's captain, Corey Hawkins as Clements, David Dasmalchian as the ship's first mate Wachek, Eileen Francoisi as Anna, and Javier Botet as Count Dracula. Let's start with what I think is one of the most attractive and kind of like strengths of the film, which is the look of the film. What did you guys think?
I think it was shot very beautifully. That's the one thing I think that is the strongest about this film is the cinematography. I think the colors really put you in a certain mood and they keep you there the whole time. You know, it was very blue and dark and gray and sort of washed of life, which, you know, just it was consistently throughout the film. I thought very creepy. I think it was very menacing the way they shot the ship in the water and the way they did the graphics with all the waves and all that stuff. The cinematography is the strongest strength of this film.
I'm going to agree. I think that the cinematography is really where this film shines. And I think that it is bolstered with the physical sets. I love the design of the ship. I think that when you see characters interacting in these sets, it is where the film is the most alive.
Look, it was super moody. Even in the daylight, it seemed eerie somehow. And I think, like you're saying too, like the ocean itself was like a menacing presence, almost like a predator in its own right, like another character. And I thought the ship was like really creepy and cool, and the sets and the sails and everything, it was like very impacting.
One thing I want to point out is that this is blood vessel erasure. Does anybody remember a little film I like to call Blood Vessel?
A little film? Are you talking about the epic adventure that we once
The
reviewed?
second to none nightmarish blockbuster.
Yes.
Blood Vessel.
Let's just not pretend like Blood Vessel doesn't exist,
Now,
because it does.
I actually did think about Blood Vessel while I was watching.
You had
Last
to.
Voyage.
Yeah. I thought about Alien also because this seemed like
my
Alien
God.
on a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally just alien on a boat,
It is
mama.
literally Alien on a boat. There's no escape and you're kind of being hunted down one by one. It was that story kind of retold. I think it was kind of interesting because virtually everyone that wants to see this movie knows exactly what happens to the Demeter. It's basically the beginning of Bram Stoker's Dracula when Dracula lands in London and kind of takes over Carfax Castle and the Reign of Terror begins. So we know that there's
fabulous.
like maybe one, in the case of this film, one survivor on the ship, but it's like definitely like a doomed voyage. I was wondering what you guys thought about the retelling and were there any points that were surprising?
I think the inclusion of the child, the two kids, but the boy mostly, sort of took it in a cutesy or nicey cutie like Disney direction that I wasn't expecting. I mean, this is like a horror movie, a rated R horror movie. And I just felt like that took away from it. So maybe that was a surprising element because I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be kind of more roughnecky, like, you know,
Like swashbuckling and piratey.
Yeah, you know,
I
like
did
more
too.
like drinking and adult. Because I mean, David was in it, and I saw stills of his character. I was like, "You look rough," and I'm like, you know, I thought that's what it was
Yeah.
going to be like. So that's what I was surprised about.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who I have not read the original Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so, you know, when the film opens and says, this is a retelling of the captain's log, I was like, ooh, exciting. Like, hi, I generally know what's going to happen. I found myself wondering what elements were part of the original canon and what elements were not. Because I did feel like the inclusion of the kid or just some of the lore around, I think we'll kind of get to her, but like the blood doll character.
Yeah.
There were elements where I thought, is this accurate to how it originally was presented, or is this something that is sort of brought for a modern audience?
It's definitely an interpretation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of
absolutely.
sense.
These are liberties for the modern audience. And I think maybe some of the cooler points of The Last Voyage of the Demeter, like, because you mentioned her, the kid, the children in the story, and Anna, this blood doll character. And her character basically is like a villager from Carpathia somewhere who's had generations of families that basically lived under the yoke of like the Count in his big menacing castle. And he's influenced them and controlled them and through fear and probably, you know, some of his like supernatural powers. But she's basically put on the ship in one of the crates as a blood doll, a literal meal for Dracula to sort of like survive on, which is kind of cool.
It's cool, but I want to ask, you know, because I actually missed this part when she was revealed. She was just in the dirt, buried there, like alive.
Yes? Question mark. I think that she was in a bag so that she, you know, well, yeah, she was kind of, I mean, basically in a comatose state. And as they show later, there were ways for Dracula to sort of like get in and out of his own crate at kind of like at night, so that he
Sure.
could like break into her crate and, you know, feed on her.
But how did she not die?
Well, she was basically completely comatose. And like, I don't know. I also thought that was part of like maybe the magic of Dracula that I kind of wish they had gone a little deeper into. Like, Dracula has so many fabulous powers. I'm kind
Right.
of like, okay, well, if one of them is sort of this limbo state, you know, that this character is in, maybe a little bit more on that.
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
some of-
because if she was already turned, like, because they showed everyone that got bit turned into like a vampire, and
This is a weakness, I think. of
I
the
want to talk
movie.
about that next too. But you know, they turned very quickly, like very quickly after being bitten. So I'm like, if she was like that, how did she not turn? You know what I mean? It was sort of odd.
It could almost be borderline annoying to try to rationalize stories about fucking fantasy creatures like vampires and be like, well, what happened? But I do think it sparks our using our own imagination to say, well, what could have happened in the story? And one thing that jumps to mind is the other victims on the ship who did turn into vampires were like brutally and viciously attacked. And I think to death. Right. But this character, Anna, is like literally nibbled on. Like you can see the bite marks on her arm and her shoulders and her back, like small feedings.
Oh, you know, actually, that is a good point, because I noticed when they sort of are showing Anna's wounds, they are literally just like, okay, like, hi, if you just bit into your own arm,
Yeah.
like, okay, cool.
Kinda silly.
Exactly. Versus the way that, oh my God, the shenak of the boat gets attacked. I was like, mama, this is like me attacking him. What happened?
But he also had those really gnarly looking teeth, right?
Yeah.
That would sort of like rip out your throat. So I'm like, when they showed the bites on her, they were like little, like regular person, like circular
Yeah.
teeth. I'm like, what? I don't understand.
Well, I almost wondered if that was part of, which I'm actually very happy that they did this at the end. Like, my favorite part of the film is when they show Dracula sort of in his like gentleman form, because I thought that that was something that I was like, oh, okay, well, we're seeing Dracula as the Count. You know, we're seeing him as this like this giant bat creature throughout the entire film, but
Dracula is the one who machinated all of this. Like, Dracula didn't just get stuffed in a crate. Like, he the one who planned all this. So, like, where is Gentleman Dracula? And then we kind of see him at the end. So do I think that maybe he could have just been like, oh, a little bite, tee on her arm? Yeah, I think so.
Not with that shark mouth though, because
No.
like his physical was extreme. I want to talk about it too because I actually really loved the way the vampire looked, but those teeth were wild, and I don't know if he could do a baby bite on her.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it started out. I think his physical form in this depiction was very decayed, and it slowly built up to where he became the gentleman. You know, because his teeth were all crooked and crazy and snaggletooth looking at first, and then you notice later, after he had ate a couple of people, they were like together and looking nice. She got some dental work
She
done.
did get her dental work done. She
So
got them right together.
there's no
That
way
news
that she
did-
didn't have like that. Like
Gentleman veneers.
she didn't have
Yes.
her gentleman veneers on when she was biting on that girl. So I don't
Definitely
know. Kind of
not.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
Inconsistent. I have a problem with
How
it.
dare they? It's interesting to talk about the design of Dracula because from his Draculacy up, I love. From the Draculacy down, I don't love because there's this one shot where it's like he's on like the bow of the ship and it's like, you know, there's lightning flashing and he's so menacing. And then he kind of stands up on his little bat legs. I was like, oh, you're cute.
Oh
You're
my God. It makes me
cute."
think of that meme where it's like the gothic bats dancing and it's like upside
Yeah,
down. They're like, they have
totally.
those little baby legs.
I thought too that they showed him like in a bat form. I thought for a minute they were going to show other sort of vampiric powers like the rats, because the rats were like a thing. And so I thought maybe he, you know, you can like drop and turn into like a dozen rats or something.
that
I
would've
thought,
been cool.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
when they opened the crate and there was maggots, but he wasn't there, I thought, oh, maybe he just turned into maggots, you know, as a
Yeah.
camouflage thing, but it wasn't.
Yeah. I got to say, I guess I'm alone on this one. Like, I actually liked and enjoyed some of the powers that they did show. There's a specific scene, too, like at the end, and I think it's a scene where David Dasmalchian is killed, very close to that. Actually, before I go any further, let me just say this. It never, ever gets old to see your good friends in movies.
Yeah,
and
that was cute.
It makes me fucking giggle, and I'm so excited for him. Like, we love David Dasmalchian. He's been on the show before, and he's a friend of ours outside of Dragula World. And just going to the movies and seeing him on screen is such a weird thrill. It's like a treat. I feel like, I don't know, it just makes me feel giddy inside. So anyway, during that scene when they're in the crow's nest and they don't know that Dracula can fly yet. It hasn't been discovered. And you can see the tendrils of fog, like a magic smoke, come up over the ship and kind of just shroud everything. Because Dracula knows exactly what's going on. And then the flight happens and him
Yeah.
coming in like silent, like a predator, you know, in the sky. I thought it was like very cool. And it goes on in the Gentleman Ghost form and even earlier too, where he's playing kind of like mind tricks. Like when he gives you the bite, he knows where you are. He knows what you're thinking. He can influence your thoughts. And I think that's the part, the vampiric lore, what I love.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wish that some of the powers were pushed a little bit more? Absolutely. But I do think that they showed off kind of a good array of powers. You know, it didn't really require you to be like, well, I know all the powers from this iteration to that iteration. Like, you know, you didn't have to have like a massive knowledge to be like, oh, Dracula fucking people up on this boat.
Yeah.
Like, mama, this is the blood vessel.
What did you think of his Gollum form? Because he was like weak and weird and sniveling in the shadows, like when he first came out of the box.
I didn't understand it because the thing is, he's shipping himself from his house. He should be fresh and ready to go. You know, like I didn't understand why he was so decayed.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
It made me wonder, because again, like, kind of going back to what I had said, like, hi, Dracula ain't no dummy. Like, she's the one who put herself in the box. But then I was like, well, why is she so decayed? And I wondered if it was sort of to sort of self-sustain herself, because in her fully realized form, maybe she's like, mama, I have to eat an entire person every single day. So if she's kind of in her like decayed form, she's like, okay, I can just sort of feed on this doll until I get to the castle.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that was the other thing I thought is like, so in this story, Dracula has to drink someone's blood every day, basically.
Yeah.
Because every night she would come out and do this. So I don't know. Like maybe it took a couple of days once she got in the dirt to go from here to the boat. Maybe had been too many days or something. I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
Like maybe she was fresh when she first got in the box, but then like a
Yeah,
week
like,
later.
after 2 weeks, honey, she's
I mean,
hungry.
I know how I feel
She's
when
like,
I get off of an international flight. So just times 3, you know?
Exactly.
And they feed
Actually,
you on
that
the
makes a lot
flight.
of sense now.
shortly after the gentleman Dracula that we see at the very end of the movie, I think we're introduced to a trope that I think a lot of horror films are starting to use, and I don't think I'm a big fan of it, which is like a final scene that basically sets up a sequel if this one does good enough at the box office. You know what I mean? It leads you right into another story, and I don't think I'm a fan of that. I want this story to have a nice, succinct ending, you know?
It should, because we know this is like one of, if not the most famous horror book out there. And so we know how it's going to end and we know how it's going to go. And we know that this character has nothing to do with the story. And it's just, so I'm like, he definitely should have died because, you know what I mean? Because it makes no sense. We know what characters are involved with Dracula after he gets off the boat. And it's not, it's weird.
Yeah, I read an article that was sort of talking about the last voyage of the Demeter as maybe one of the last nails in the coffin for Universal's dark universe that they're trying to build, which is a little sad because I think that like a Marvel Cinematic Universe-esque landscape that's populated by Dracula and Frankenstein and the Mummy. Like, I think that that's really cool, but I don't love the way they're going about it. Like I said, I haven't read the book, so whether Clemens is a part of the book or kind of in what capacity, I just found him to be sort of annoying. I'm kind of like, there's one part for me where it's like, I think David Dastmalchian's character is like, there's evil on this boat. And the response is, I believe in science. I believe in medicine. I'm like, Mama, there is a literal bad creature on this boat.
Okay, how
Shut
about
the hell
when
up.
a little kid's locked in the captain's cabin, the door is like kind of half busted open, but they can't get through, and they're all looking through the hole.
And then they see
and I'm like,
him.
you are seeing a literal ghoul in front of you, and no one is talking about it.
Everyone's like, oh, hey, creepy old naked guy, news at 11.
In the following scenes, everyone's like, well, 2 days to London. I'm like, you just saw Dracula in the fucking ship. Like, why are you guys not talking about it?
But that was sort of one of the problems with this film is like, these sort of crazy things would happen. Like, well, this guy's a zombie with white eyes and, let's just tie him to the thing. Okay, maybe you're at water. That makes sense. But when he bursts into flames.
Into literal flames.
And you're just like, wow. Okay, well, let's go eat. You're like, what? What?
I know Drac and I felt differently about that too. I kind of liked the burst into flame effect.
I was not.
I was
fan
into
of
it.
that. I thought that was
into it.
Absurd.
It
like
burns.
They turn too quickly, and if it's just too fantastical. It's the stuff we were talking about when we were talking about Talk to Me and the idea of possession and how they presented that in a way that felt very real and like that could happen. And I feel like similarly with a vampire, I don't think they would walk out in the sun and they would burst into flames. Like, I don't think that's how it would be, I think, I don't know, maybe they would sort of like get welts or maybe they'd have a heart attack or whatever. But it just took me, it was too fantastical to me.
Sure. I mean, to each their own, right? We all have the liberty of interpreting those myths and the lore and all the ways that creatures can be killed or be turned and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's like thought-provoking and it's exciting. If you didn't like it, I totally get it.
I mean, I'm accepting that there's a giant bat creature that's buried in dirt flying around. So it's like, it is what it is. But I think the whole magic of these sort of mysterious creatures, and Dracula has so much mystery around them, is that it's sort of unprovable. It's sort of, you see it out of the corner of your eye and things like that. So to have it so blatant special effects Hollywood, like flames, like it's the Human Torch, like it was just a little much.
I guess I could see that. I think it's interesting because this movie has a lot of strengths in sort of the visual department. And for a while, it's really mysterious and really moody. But then the movie does shift into kind of a more fantastical, almost swashbuckling adventure. Like everyone's got guns and suddenly Anna, Mama, she is the swashbuckler. Like she knows how to put the bullets in. I'm like, okay, Mary Sue, let's go.
I want to point out that this is, I think, the second Dracula movie that we've had this year. The first one being Renfield, which I think we talked about briefly on another episode, and I hated it. And this one I think is by far the more superior movie based in the world of Dracula. So I want to encourage everybody to go check it out, because if you're anything like me, if there's a vampire movie, I'm going to see it come hell or high water, whatever it is. I kind of pride myself in seeing all things from the world of vampires. And
even
I definitely
Underworld.
Oh yeah, absolutely. More than once.
Especially Underworld. I'm sorry, girl. What?
I thought you were going to say even Blood Vessel.
And the monsters in Blood Vessel were cool.
They were cool.
Yeah.
They looked cool.
They
Although
were.
I think they do the female kind of dirty. I thought she looked very cool, but she didn't really do much.
See, that was another interpretation. Like Dracula came with a bride in that movie.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that would be
kind of
interesting.
cool, but you made it up.
Well, on that note, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we'll be reaching into our bag of listener questions. Don't move, uglies. Welcome back, my darlings. It's time to reach into our bag of listener mail and answer some of your burning questions. Ian, would you do the honors?
Opening up my specially marked tomb. Ben from Cleveland asks, did any of you interpret a theme of addiction in Talk to Me? Mia becomes addicted to using the hand. She steals from her loved ones, lies, becomes paranoid. It felt very subtextual to me. We also have another question on this same subject that I'm going to loop into this one. Matt asks, I just got done listening to your review of Talk to Me, and let me tell you what a little orgasmic rush, en petit meurtre, if you will, it was to hear Swanthula say it was on their list of favorite horror films ever. I wanted to write in because I was a little gagged you all didn't cover the drug abuse coping behavior allegory presented in the film. Maybe a huge reason for me loving this film was being so intensely confronted with my own past, quote, party behaviors, and that's why I saw it so clearly.
I think it obviously was an addiction allegory of sorts, but to me, I just felt like I wanted to look at it as a horror movie. And I think you could interpret it in different ways, right? If that's something that touches your life normally, it maybe would come to your mind a lot faster. It obviously, yes, the context is there, but that's just not, to me, that's not what stood out. What did you all think?
I'm going to agree. But I would like to say I have a lot of experience with addiction in my life, not personally, but the people around me and the ones that I love. It's very painful. And for many people, I literally think it is a living horror movie that can be lifelong and it can end your life. It's sad. But I took this also like more of a supernatural experience. Thinking back and looking at the film Talk to Me through the lens of addiction, I think the comparisons of the story of people struggling and becoming addicted to something at a party and sharing it and laughing, and then that laughter quickly turns to tears. It's so clear. It's absolutely there. It's just not what I saw when I first saw the film.
I thought it was about a hand that you shook it and then the spirits from it possessed you. And then you killed people.
You know what? And all things
and
can
then
be
you
true.
killed yourself.
Oh, comedy. Bronwyn from the UK writes, my partner and myself are huge Boulet Brothers Dragula fans, and we're really looking forward to seeing you both with Coco and Victoria in the UK. However, I have just tried to book tickets for the meet and greet and have seen that it costs £55 for the meet and greet, and a ticket to the event is not even included. I am gobsmacked. If your fans want to meet the cast and go to the event, they are paying upwards of £89 each. This is extortionate and beyond the budget of many of your fans who would do anything to meet their idols. I am sure I am not the only fan who feels severely let down.
You may not. And there's a couple of things I want to say about this. One, we don't determine ticket prices at all. It's not up to us. We don't have any influence on any of that stuff. We just have the opportunity to come to the UK. We know we have a lot of UK fans, and we want to be there to meet them and to perform for them. And that's really, where it starts and ends with us. But the other side of it is you may be comparing it to the season 4 tour. Well, I don't know how much you pay attention to economics, but the economic landscape has changed in a crazy way since we were there in season 4. Like inflation, even in production, for example, with us making the show and the projects that we work on, it's almost double expensive than it was during season 4. And so I don't know if people take that into consideration. So I think the option is sometimes for these promoters to say, do we want to offer this to the fans in the UK? Do we want to bring the Boulet Brothers and the Dragula Titans over here? If we do, wow, look how hard this is and how expensive it is. Can we make this work? And I think that that's what they're grappling with. It's understandable why you may have an issue with that if economically it's something that you couldn't afford to do, and especially if you were able to do it before. But, things will go up and down, and I think they will adjust over time. But you do give the tour company a break because I think they're trying to do the best that they can as well.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, to throw my 2 cents in, if we did have an influence, and sometimes, they'll ask, what about this, or what do you think of that, our opinions, we always err on the side of like not gouging the audience. Like, let's make this as accessible as possible. And we do that with our own events too, even annual events that sell out every year. We don't like super hike up the prices because we could, but our belief is like the more that people can access it. Everyone should be able to experience it. And if they can, and if they want to, we would love them to be able to. So we like to keep the prices down.
And think about this too. How much you pay for a ticket directly impacts how the star you're coming to see is being treated. What is their flight like? What is their food like? What is their accommodations like? And if you're paying bottom of the barrel prices to see somebody, what do you think their experience is like coming to see you? So just keep that all in mind when you're trying to figure out, prices and tickets and all that stuff.
Well, that's all we have time for on this episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. Thank you for joining us, as always, Uglies. And be sure to send your listener questions in to creatures@bouletbrothersdragula.com so we can answer them on an upcoming episode. Also, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, especially on Apple Podcasts, because they matter more than everybody else. For whatever reason, I don't know, but if you did, it would make me oh so happy. Until next time, Uglies. The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted by the Boulet Brothers with their co-host and producer, Ian DeVogler. Engineered and mixed by Carlos Bueno, with music by Neuron Spector.